Hi, I'd like to give you a quick tour of Protozoa, a Poseidon Adventure. So this topic of Protozoa is one that a lot of people don't feel is really worth covering much at all. You know, you hear about an amoeba and that's about it. But I found it is incredibly interesting, and these little guys, they're the basis of every ecological system, and I think they're not studied enough. And they're really fun. This is a great fun adventure, and I guarantee if your kids have ever done any of these of my books with these fingerprint people, this is the best fingerprint guy adventure ever. So unlike my other books, I open with a cartoon, another page of cartoons, another page of cartoons. I mean, look at that. How fun is that? I mean, even the most science shy person is going to be fascinated with this, I think. So these guys go to a little stand that says Poseidon Adventures. They're bored and they're looking for an adventure, and so he promises them the adventure of their lifetime. And so they get in this boat and they press this little button, and their boat gets zapped, and suddenly they realize they're really, really small. They're a tiny little boat, and so insects look huge. They look as tall as a 10-story building. So then they find out, being that small, they find out what is around them. They can see things they wouldn't ordinarily be able to see. First, they have to find out how small they really are. And we learn a very, very important science fact here, and that is how you measure very small things. If you put your fingers like this, that's about 1 millimeter. And their boat is about 1 millimeter long. And then they find out that you can divide the millimeter into 1,000 tiny pieces, and each one is called a micron. So they can kind of use their boat to measure things. This guy says, well, in fact, they find out their boat has little lines on it where they can estimate. So when the little creatures swim by, they can estimate how big they are. And this is really important when you're looking at something under a microscope. Size is a really big clue. So the first protozoa we meet is the most well-known one, the Paramecium. And so first we learn what is inside a Paramecium's body. It's a single cell, and we see these little organelles. We look at what they are, what they do. There's a little thing that pumps water in and out. There's the nucleus with the DNA, and we learn how it eats, how it excretes things, how it takes in oxygen. So we learn how you can live as a single cell. And it's kind of odd. It's a single cell, and yet it eats, it moves, it acts like a little animal. And we learn a little bit of history about when they were first discovered. So we learn a whole lot about the Paramecium, how they divide using fission. And then the information you learn in this chapter is applicable to most of the other protozoa. They all basically have the same cell parts. So this is where we really go over the anatomy. And then as an added feature, we have an ongoing battle between Jupiter and Zeus. Zeus representing Greek words and Jupiter representing Latin words. Because if you know a lot of the Greek and Latin root words, the names that sound difficult really aren't that difficult. It means like big foot, but it's in Latin, so it sounds funny. So we're going to learn as many of these Greek and Latin word roots as we can. And so we keep track. During the chapter, the kids count up, and I help you. I give a list here, and you write, like here it says multis, many, and then it has a line for your response. So we keep track of how many there are in each chapter and who will win, Zeus or Jupiter. Is the world of biology more Greek words or more Latin words? So then we meet some other little creatures that swim by the boat, and we meet Dileptus and Didinium, and I find that kids have no problem learning these words. I mean, they're no more difficult than any of the Pokemon names or anything else they learn. They have no problem. This guy is fun. He's got like a little trunk thing, and he taps, he like hits his prey and smashes it up and sucks it in. It's kind of cool. And then here's some pictures of Spirostomum that I took. These are my own photographs, and I show you about all these little parts and what they do. And then I've got videos where you can watch the Spirostomum swimming around. You can even watch one disintegrate. I watched one evaporate on my slide and just disintegrate, and you can watch that. They're huge. Look at, they're so big in comparison to the boat. So because we have the boat is 1 millimeter, you can tell this is a little more than a millimeter. So this guy you'd actually be able to see, very tiny, but you'd actually be able to see it without a microscope. Now here's a big favorite right here, Stentor. It's this huge ciliate that's like in a cone shape, and the cilia on top, little hairs, swirl around and they suck things down in. So their boat almost gets sucked in. They're like, oh no, we're gonna get sucked into the Stentor. Fortunately they don't, of course. Here's another cool one. This is my favorite, Loxodtes. I have a pond with a whole bunch of these, and you learn about its little, it's like a very, very simple version of our inner ear. It has a little circle with a ball hanging there. It goes back and forth, and this is how it knows up from down. It's really, really neat. So I explain that. And we meet the Vorticella. This is really fun too. It's on like a little spring. It boings up and down. It's got the fastest reaction time of just about anything on the planet. It goes down so fast, and I've got videos you can watch. He's really fun. Kids love Vorticella. And how much more adventure. They meet this little Epistolis guy. It kind of looks like a tree, but it has little, it's actually a ciliate. And then some pencil and paper activities. And again, Jupiter or Zeus, who had the most words in this chapter? You count it up, and then you put in what they mean. You keep track of who's winning. And then let's see, we meet in chapter 3 the Autotrophs, the green things that make their own food. And we meet all kinds of, there's chlorella, algae. This would be the things we call algae, the things that are like pond scum, the scummy green stuff that grows on ponds. Here's one of my favorites, Volvox. It has, it's a colony actually with a lot of little things living inside a big one. Fascinating form of life, really, really interesting. And I'll get to the activities in a minute. There's some really fun activities that go with that. So then we meet again Zeus and Jupiter. Oh, poor Jupiter only has a few words in this chapter. Let's see who wins there. Okay, and I have some silly activities like, what do these remind you of? There's like a squash and a soccer ball and an ice cream cone and a slipper, and you guess which protozoa they remind you of. You know, it's just something fun. And then we meet the diatoms, desmids and dinoflagellates. Lots of fun critters here. Diatoms are so important. They're everywhere in every body of water, and they actually are a bigger source of oxygen than trees. More oxygen comes from these little diatoms than it does the Amazon rainforest. They say the rainforest is the lungs of the planet. Baloney. It's these diatoms here. So they're like a little glass box. It's really weird. It's like a living glass box. Really bizarre. And you meet some desmids. Beautiful, beautiful creatures. Dinoflagellates. Some of the weirdest stuff. These are the things that cause the red tides. They can actually be dangerous. We learn about that. And then we meet the amoeboids, and we have a slimy one that's almost taken over the boat there. And you get to see some of it. Oh no, they learn how it feeds. Uh-oh, it almost tries to eat the motor. And they'll just kind of suck in anything and everything they come across. So we learn about those, and we learn about some things that aren't protozoa. We learn about rotifers real quickly and ostracods, other things that you would see in pond water that are not single-celled. And the funny thing is, some of these are multicellular, but they're the same size as, or smaller than, some of the single-celled things. And then we meet the radiolarians. These things are really crazy. You wouldn't even think they were a living thing. These little spiky things that are actually a type of amoeba. Really weird. There's some beautiful, beautiful pictures. These are actually from past centuries. People have known about these for a long time. They've done some beautiful artwork. They're just artistically beautiful. Okay, and then there's some, the slime molds, these weird slimy things that look like yellow animal poop is what they look like. And kids love learning about the slimy things. In the epilogue, I do have one chapter on the dark side of protozoa. Of course, there's some dangerous things. Things that cause diseases like malaria. So you can learn about some disease-causing things. And if it's too disturbing, you can skip it, the chapter, if you want to. And then in the back, we have a guide that you can use at any point. You can also hang on to this. You can download it off my site too and print it out. And you can carry this as a little field guide if you study ponds. Has a little classification explanation here, reminds you of the size, and then it has a picture of all the different things, their name, how big they are, some information on it, and we go through all the ciliates, the amoeboids, the flagellates, and so this is just a really helpful thing if you find something in a pond and you want to identify it. This is a really helpful guide. And then we have in the back the extra activities. This is kind of like the teacher section. And I've got a lot of craft ideas. If you'd like to do crafts, you can use this picture to do various things. There's an idea for making an amoeba pillow, some fabric markers, or I mean a Paramecium pillow. And there's a game about the Greek and Latin word roots that you're learning. And there's a mural project. You can use these, you print them out and put them on a wall, and then you can have the students, as you go along, make the drawings of these little creatures according to a certain scale. You set the scale, is like 1 inch is a micron or a millimeter is a micron. You set the scale and then you make them all to scale. In this activity, I encourage the students to use their sense of humor and make a cartoon about some protozoa. And then I have cards that you can use to play a number of different games. You just copy these onto cardstock and you add to your collection as you go through here and play different games. There's a Vorticella pencil topper craft, and this is let's see, right here is a ball you make. Here we go. There's some patterns to make a ball where you can play. It's kind of like a hot potato game, and I have review questions. You can do straight up with an answer questions, and here's some opinion questions. It doesn't put anybody on the spot. There's no wrong answer. So these are just a lot of fun. And there's a little diatom box you color and make, and yes, the diatoms are triangular. They're really weird. Another craft, you can make desmids, more of these cards, another game to play with them, all kinds of extra. There's a Greek and Latin activity you do. Another game that you play with them. And there's a game you cut out and put together called Pond Scum. And this is kind of a chess-like game where the pieces move similar to like chess. Like one of them can move a long ways, one of them can move like diagonally. So each one has a different way that it moves. And they simulate a little bit how the protozoa actually move. Like this one can't move at all. The amoeba moves really slowly, and these little guys are allowed to move a lot of spaces at once. So it's always a popular game. There's a picture of the mural to give you some ideas. And then I did a pillowcase project right here with mine where they get the fabric markers. As long as you have fabric markers for the other project, they got to make all kinds of protozoa on a pillowcase. And then the back, if you get this paperback, I have the consumables where I have things printed single-sided, so you can actually take these out of the book. If printing color copies is an issue, you can just take these right out of the book. And this is available both in a paperback on my website and on Amazon, or you can buy it as a digital download. You get the exact same thing as the book. It's just digital format, and then you print out what you want. You can read it off the screen mostly and then just print out activity pages, or you can print the whole thing. It's up to you. So either one is available on my website.